What if I told you the greatest pirate who ever lived never wanted to be one? That's right. Bartholomew Roberts, the man they called Black Bart, was a reluctant rogue who became the king of the seas. How did a humble sailor from Wales end up with a price on his head and a legend that outlived him? Well, pull up a chair and I'll spin you a yarn worth listening to. Not all pirates were born with a dagger in their teeth and a thirst for rum. Some, like our friend Bart, stumbled into the trade much like a man tripping into a puddle. One moment, he was an honest sailor, and the next, he was the most feared pirate to ever wear silk stockings. But don't let the finery fool you. This was a man who could outwit the British Navy and outfight the devil himself. Bart had no wild dreams of piracy. Oh no, he was a respectable sailor. That is, until fate and a certain rogue named Howell Davis intervened. It was 1719, and Bart's ship was sailing off the coast of Africa when Davis, a seasoned pirate, swooped in like a hawk. The crew was captured, and Davis gave Bart a choice: join us or rot in the brig. Well, Bart was no fool. He joined, reluctantly, but it wasn't long before he realized something peculiar. Pirates lived better than most kings. No bowing, no scraping, just the open sea and all the riches one could steal. And Bart? He had a knack for it. He watched Davis closely, learning the tricks of the trade: how to navigate by the stars, how to outmaneuver a merchant ship, and how to charm a crew into loyalty. But fate had more tricks up its sleeve. Just as Roberts was settling into his new life, Davis got himself shot in a skirmish, leaving the crew without a leader. To Bart's surprise, the men turned to him. He could have refused. He could have stepped aside. But something in him stirred. He had the bearing of a leader, and the crew saw it. And so, with a crimson coat on his back and a glint in his eye, Roberts made a decision that would shake the seas. If he was to be a pirate, he'd be the finest that ever lived. Roberts wasn't your run-of-the-mill cutthroat. He didn't waste time on drunken brawls or petty squabbles. No, he ran his ship with the precision of a Navy commander. He even wrote a code of conduct for his crew. No gambling, no fighting, and no women on board. "We're pirates, not savages," he'd say with a wink. Dressed like a nobleman, speaking like a gentleman, and fighting like the devil himself, Roberts became a legend. He took more than 400 ships in his time, a number that makes even Blackbeard look like a common pickpocket. But here's what made him truly dangerous. He was unpredictable. One moment, he'd burn a ship to the waterline, and the next, he'd spare a crew with a tip of his hat. Nobody ever knew which Roberts they were dealing with, and that made him more terrifying than a sea monster. There's a story they tell about Bart, how he once captured a ship carrying a governor's wife. The woman, trembling with fear, begged for her life. Bart, ever the charmer, bowed deeply and said, "Madam, I am a gentleman, not a brute. You have nothing to fear from me." He returned her safely to port, along with a letter apologizing for the inconvenience. The governor, baffled, could only shake his head. "What kind of pirate writes apologies?" he muttered. But don't mistake his manners for weakness. When crossed, Bart was as ruthless as they come. He once captured a crew that had betrayed him and made them walk the plank without a second thought. "A pirate's word is his bond," he said coldly. "Break it, and you break yourself." They say luck is a pirate's best friend, but even the best of them run out sooner or later. For Roberts, it happened off the coast of West Africa in 1722. The British Royal Navy had had enough of him, and they sent a warship, the His Majesty's Ship Swallow, to put an end to his reign. Roberts, ever the daring sort, didn't flee like a common scoundrel. No, he stood at the bow of his ship, dressed in all his finery: crimson coat, feathered hat, and pistols gleaming. If he was to meet his end, he'd do it in style. "Come on, lads," he shouted. Let's give them a show they'll never forget. And then, bang! A cannon blast straight through his throat. Just like that, the greatest pirate of his time was no more. But his men, they honored him in a way only pirates would understand. They wrapped him in his finest clothes, weighted his body with cannonballs, and sent him to the depths, just as he had wished. You'd think that was the end of him, but a man like Black Bart doesn't simply vanish. His name lingers, carried on the wind, whispered in the creak of a ship's mast. Some say his ghost still sails the seas, his crimson coat a flash of red against the moonlit waves. Others claim they've seen his black flag fluttering in the distance, a skeleton's grin mocking the living. He was the pirate who never wanted to be one, the reluctant rogue who became king of the sea. His death marked the beginning of the end for the Golden Age of Piracy. But his legend? That part never sank. So next time you're near the water, keep an ear open. Maybe, just maybe, the sea itself still hums a tune in his honor.